Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be installing a hydraulic top link on a 1025R. The control valve that I'm using is the John Deere's third control valve. The kit part number is BLV11217, and putting that on my 2021 1025R. So that's all the stuff it comes with, all the different hoses, brackets, everything. There's the control valve, bag of parts. The instructions I printed off online. Found those. I can put a link to those in the description. And then the top link is 090599. I got that from AgriSupply, along with two 42-inch hoses. I think one of them might be a little long, and if so, I'll have to run down to my local store and get a 36-inch maybe. Alright, first thing we gotta do is relieve all the pressure from the hydraulic system. Alright, our next step will be to chock the wheels and take off the right rear wheel. It's a 19 millimeter to take off the rear bolts. Alright, we'll wheel this out of the way. Next is to remove the rated drop lock. So it's a 3 millimeter Allen set screw. Just loose that up, and that comes off. Next, we'll remove the kick panel, which you've got this knob. We've got 2 bolts here and then 2 screws here. So the knob is just simple, just grab it and lift up. The screws, that's a number 3 Phillips. There's one. And then these 2 bolts are going to be 13 millimeter. Let's see, I've got and you've got a little spacer under there. Same bolt, washer, spacer. And it should allow us to slide the kick panel out. There we go. All right, next we're going to take off the seat. It requires removal of the seat safety switch. I've already disconnected it. You're basically going to take that little tab and pull it outwards as you wiggle this up. It's going to take a little bit of force. And then there's 4 Allens. You got 2 on the back and 2 on the front. So what we'll do is the seat is slid all the way forward right now, and we'll take off the back 2. And there's a nut underneath that you'll have to worry about catching to make sure you don't drop it down there. So the nut on the bottom is 13 millimeter, and then a 6 millimeter Allen. And the bottom is flanged, so we'll take the ridge. Yeah, we'll take this out. Alright. We've got our nut and bolt. Right there and right there. Same thing, there's the nut underneath we'll have to catch. Break loose. And then get this out in there. One. 2. Alright, there's the hole on the bottom that I've wiggled the harness through. And after that, it's just wrestling the seat. Just due to the weight, just to get it up and out. There it is. Okay, now it calls to remove the fender. First part will be this trim piece will come off. We've got 2 13mm bolts. This one has a nut underneath that we'll have to capture so we don't lose it. We'll have to disconnect this light, and as we lift it up, we'll have to disconnect this wiring harness. One thing the instructions say is to put this in the middle, and I assume that's because as we lift it, we'll have to kind of flare this out in order to get this handle through there. I'll move this one first. One. And then, like I said, this one I'll have to put a 13mm wrench on the bottom to capture the nut so I don't lose it. And on the bottom side, it has a washer. And there's the nut. And then our bolt. Okay, one last thing we gotta do before we take this off is we've gotta loosen the grab handle. Underneath, you have access to, see if I get here, you got 2 13mm bolts that'll go up through the a bracket and into the handle. So I'm here's one. One, 2. And we'll come back up on the top side and you'll see that the handle's off now. Push that harness through. Remember, it said to keep that in the middle. You're going to kind of flex this out to get it over that handle. There we go. Okay, next it's going to have us remove this part of the fender, and in doing so we'll have to take this knob and undo these 5 bolts. When they come out, it'll loosen up for right here. So take this knob off. We're just going to unscrew it so not to drop it. And we'll get our impact and take these off. Be able to lift this pad out. Be careful because in each hole is a washer that we don't want to lose. Alright, remove our 5 bolts out of there, which frees up this whole piece. Now I've got one more in the back. I don't know if you can see that. We got one more back there. It's a 13, so I'll remove that. And there is a spacer you got to keep up with. Now we'll see if we can wiggle this out. Next we have to remove the toolbox. 13 millimeter nuts on the back and 13 millimeter bolts. We're at the stage now to start assembling the upper part of this control. You got your main bracket that mounts to the ROPS. We've got our valve. The first thing the instruction wants to do is you take one of your 70 millimeter long M8 bolts. It actually does not specify if you need to use one of the locking nuts or regular ones. It's going to be accessible where it's at for right now, so I'm just going to use a regular one. It tells us to go ahead and put it into that upper hole. Like that. So we're going to do this one first. And then we're looking for part D. It's going to be one of the 290s. There's two different ones. You got an 11/16 opening and a 13/16 opening. For part D, it is the 13/16 opening. So we're going to use the O-ring side. Thread that right on there. Like that. Then tighten down the locking nut. There we go. Basically what that's doing is seating. There's an O-ring. It's seating that O-ring inside a chamfered hole, inside the chamfered hole. There's that. And the next one will enter into the left opening. And this one wants part E, which is a 45-degree elbow. Once again, we'll be putting the O-ring side in. Let's go ahead and get that cap removed. Got that off camera. We want that pointing down. Take our wrench, tighten that nut down. And there we go. See if we can get that a little bit straighter. All right. So the next thing it wants us to do is take the bracket. I'll mount the control valve through there. Like so. We're going to take these bolts, which, if I can find my ruler, these out of the pack are they're 55 millimeters long. We'll go through there, and here it does specify a locking nut. Next one, we'll install the other elbow here. This is the 11/16 opening one. Same, you want that O-ring to be down. It's going to face that direction. And you want to tighten that. While you're doing this, you're trying to hold this in place. I'll probably put an open-end wrench on there, but there we go. I did a little deciphering. The bolt that they mentioned going through there is actually the same bolts that were used when you take off the toolbox. So I'm just going to reuse the bolts and the lock nuts when I took the toolbox off to put this together. So I'll get everything kind of held in place. I'm going to do a bolt through there. 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 I'm just using an adjustable. Okay. All right. All right, guys. We're time to put the bulkheads onto the brackets for the lower mount. We've got two different part numbers. We got this one, looks like it is for the earlier years up to 2019. We've got this one, which is meant from 2020 and up. I have 21, so we'll go with this one. I held them both up. They both fit on the tractor, so I don't know if there's some other underlying reason why they go that route. All right, bracket, bulkhead goes through. Snip it down. Okay. There's one. No, let's get back on there. So now we're on to the female part of the quick connect. Take the cover off. O-ring. I did lubricate the O-ring a little bit with some oil. There. Help if I remove the plastic cap out of that. There we go. Go down that way. This one, same thing, O-ring. Slide it down. Yeah, get this out of the way. There we go. Okay. Get that through there. Okay. And there's our simple parts. All right, now it's time to mount the quick connects. They're going to mount on the back side of the frame. So take your bolts, go ahead and fish it through both of them. And you'll slide your quick connects in. And then take your locking nuts, feed them in from the back. Like that. And snug everything up. Okay, the next part we got to do is we're going to take the line coming from the front end loader here. It routes here, comes down to there. We've got to remove this line and clear up the space for the new line. So once again, I have a 1025R. I will use part LVA18837. And that is, it's going to mount through there. So we have to run it under here. And let's go ahead and I guess take this cap off. There we go. I'm going to loosely fit it on this end right here, on the loader end. Then up here by the third control valve, we've got to put in one more bulkhead. It's another one that has the O-ring on it. And then I'll tighten up the nut on our elbow. There we go. All right, now we're going to take this part LVA 22727, and it's going to route from the 45 down to the bottom port of the quick connect. So for now, I'm just going to loosely thread that on there. Then we'll tighten down the nut that holds that O-ring in. And there we go. Next we'll take part LVA 22728. It's going to route from this back elbow down to the top quick connect port. Alright, one last line we have to do. We'll connect the top of the valve down back to the rock shaft. For that, we'd say part LVA 18845. So I have to remember how this fits in there. So that's the idea. Now we've got to fish it to that point. If you ever played those puzzles, they are always at the doctor's office where you gotta fish stuff through like little rings around a wire puzzle. That's exactly what this feels like. As always, loose fit. That one. We'll do our top caps. There we go. Tighten it down. There we go. Tighten down our O-ring. Alright. Okay, the next part it has us do, it's just a clamp. It goes around these two that don't have the socks on them. Just nut and bolt. It does have a note. It says to try to install it as low as you can right there. I feel like that's about as low as I can get it. I do have a little bit of contact on one of the lines down here. See if I kind of flex it out and get it off of that. Nope. There we go. Yeah, I did it. In case you couldn't see while I was doing it, I'll walk you through. The first line you put in, well, the first thing you do is you take off the line that goes from here to the rock shaft. You take that old one out. You run a new one from loader valve. It goes under all of those to the bottom port there. And the next one it has you do is that port will go down. I'm trying to get so you can see all the angles of how I have it. And then it goes down to the bottom of the connection there. And then the next one is the inside one, and it goes down, routing down to the top port. Then you finish off the install of the lines with the top. It goes down, traces down, and you go over this line It's way down there, but it's above that. It goes under this line, then comes back up and into there. One tip I did have to do, the 2 bolts that hold this whole bracket in, I had to loosen those bolts up just a little so that this bracket had some play and so I could get these lines secured. Once everything was tightened down here and up top, I then tightened down these nuts and bolts. Let's put on the handle. So the cover is utilized. There's 4 welded on nuts onto the back plate. It'll utilize those as well as a couple other clips. This main back one will go on first. Slide it in. There are 10mm head bolts. Those threads, you can tell it was powder coated with the nuts on there, and the threads are kind of gummed up. So. Now the side cover, it will actually have, let me sort this hardware out. Alright, so you've got these little speed clips. They will just slide on. Like that. Then once again, you've got 2 of the smaller bolts. I'm just going to get all of the bolts started, and then I'll go back through and tighten them down. There we go. Alright, now time to put on all the different decals. There's that one. All right, everything's hooked up. Did a start the engine, kind of ran through all the cycles, make sure everything was good. No leaks. So I guess it's time to get all this bolted back together. I'll tell you that I'm about to get this in. I can tell you right now, putting this on sucks. Easy thing you do is take this piece and this piece, and I unbolted this, so all that comes out. Flip it upside down, get all your wires sorted back through the little slots. Slide the green piece with the rock shaft lever on top. Hold it all sandwiched together and slide it and jiggle it and get it in place. And this, when you slide it in, will have to go underneath this hose that routes up and comes back down. It has to go underneath that. So it's all, as you're putting it all back together, it's got to slide back together. Also, I'd move that clamp out of the way because there's a bolt under there you're going to have to tighten down. You will want a ratcheting wrench for that bolt. You can't hit it coming straight down, and if you just do a normal open-end wrench, it takes forever. Alright, there's a new cylinder. As I mentioned earlier, these are 3/4 inch O-ring boss fittings. So take the plugs out. And then I've got, this is my step down from 3/4 O-ring boss to 1/2 inch. Alright. I've pretty much got it figured out that I'm going to need 90s coming off of this. So I've got, it's 1/2 inch O-ring, and then it goes to a 3/8 inch, just the MPT fitting for the hose. I've got a little bit of hydraulic fluid sitting there that I'm just going to use to lubricate the O-ring. And right now I'm just going to leave them a little loose because I don't know exactly the angle I'll need until I get it mounted on the tractor. Same with this one. Back it off about right there. Alright, so we'll just leave those like that. I'm using a little bit of Loctite 545 on the threads. I'm gonna have to step it from 3/8 to 1/2, so that then my 1/2 can fit onto the male end of the quick connects. There we go. Now the next step will be to swap out the top links on the tractor, get it hooked up, and then this needs to sit. I think it said it can work in 8 hours, preferably let it dry for 24. So I will let it go and we'll see what happens. Alright, I know I want the fittings facing down, because if they were facing up, when this came all the way up, it would get close to interferencing with the hook. Slip that in, like so. Lift this quick hitch back up. Now we get to figure out how we want to route these. Because I really don't know yet. Alright guys, let's go over all the parts that I used for the rear hydraulic area. I stuck with the 42-inch hoses. This one could use a 38 or something like that, would probably be better. The only way I could get 38 is to have one custom made around here, and it's going to cost twice the amount. Like literally, these are about 20 bucks a piece. To have them custom made, I was looking at like $38. So 42-inch hoses. These on each end had a swivel on each end, and then on the other end would be fixed. So I used the fixed here. That way I can control basically, when this one allows a swivel, the top hose was able to rotate and allowing everything to contact. So fixed in, got it where I wanted it, tightened it all down. The back side still got the swivel. That's just how it was whenever I put it together and I didn't feel like changing it. I got everything pointed where I wanted and then tightened down the O-ring boss. I call them locks. You come around to the rear. You got hoses and they jump it from 3/8 down to half, then half into the quick connects. Then just a few zip ties to kind of hold them up. The only time it contacts anything is when this thing is fully up, fully retracted. The hose will just barely touch right here. So I appreciate everyone for watching. I don't do a lot of videos, so it might seem kind of either bad editing or bad wordage. I don't know, but bad verbiage. Either way, thank you for watching. Let me know if there's anything I could do better to approach this, any parts of this install. If you have any questions, you can find me on silverrhinomedia.com or Facebook or Instagram.